in starting that way, the book I've got here, I wrote most of it in recovery, as I was recovering from my abuse, which just started a few years ago, and then put it together into a book form. I will say, I didn't know whether to say this at the beginning or the end, but my life 4 years ago, before I opened the door and began looking at this, I could no more have imagined being standing here in front of you today than, I mean, this would have been a science fiction book that I would have been reading, because there's no way I could have conceived of the fact that I would have dealt with it, done what I've done, gotten healthy, gone out and spoken, and actually published a book on it, and then stand here and read. So this has been quite a step in a journey for me. So I'm just going to jump in here, and I don't want to hold you late, but I want to share enough of this for you to get a feel. And so the beginning of recovery, chapter 1.
Randy, you got to put that here in your mouth.
Do I need real close?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't start this healing process until age 56. Prior to that, I had dissociated my abuser's behavior from the abuser. He was my friend, my mentor, and my minister. I could not possibly think of him as a predator, so I detached the behavior from the person. This lasted for 40 years. My mother was the only person I might have ever trusted enough to tell, but she died when I was 21 and nowhere near ready to talk. Even though in my mind I knew I'd been abused, I spent 3 months in therapy before I could finally admit that my minister's behavior was criminal and I was in fact the victim. That was my first hurdle, and a very difficult one. After those first few months of therapy, I said to my counselor, "Thank you very much, I'm okay now." She didn't attempt to dissuade me. She did smile knowingly and suggested that I might just leave the issues on the table for a while instead of trying to put them away again. She said it had been hidden for so long that it might be good to air it out a little more. She asked me to call her if I wanted to talk more. 2 months later, I was having troubling dreams, and I called her and we resumed weekly appointments after I learned a little bit. My next revelation was that what happened to me affected every part of my life. What kind of husband I was, what kind of father, what kind of a friend, and what kind of an employee. My abuse had triggered my withdrawal from society, my alcohol and drug addictions, my anger, my control issues, and as a young adult, my thoughts of suicide. Any book on child sex abuse will list all of these traits and more as potential outcomes of abuse. As I continued sessions with my counselor, I was amazed to find how the tentacles of abuse and post-traumatic stress disorder had permeated every aspect of my identity and my behavior. My superior attitude began to dissolve, and I finally started growing again as a person. Once again, the lights came on for me. Every week was a new discovery of awareness. I've always enjoyed analyzing and am rarely surprised, so this was all new and even exciting to me. I began to look forward to the sessions and the understanding that came with each one. How emotionally moving and deeply satisfying it was to find that, buried under all the rubble and denial, I was in fact the person I thought I was, but never showed to the world. I've had to learn to give myself permission just to be myself and to show my feelings without fear of repercussion. I found it most difficult to be open with those closest to me because I've hidden who I am and only offered an occasional glimpse of my true identity. Working to change patterns that have been embedded for so long has been extremely difficult, but the effort has rewarded me many times over. I see the difference in how people react to me and how I feel about my relationships. I've also been thought of as abrupt and a bit of an asshole. Check with my family.
No.
Check with my family on that.
Say it's not true.
I've even taken pride in that. People I am around now find that image impossible to connect with me. I tend to be seen as a caring person, and I don't walk away with that bad feeling in my gut all the time the way I used to. After a few more months of therapy, I discovered the depth of damage to my life, and I was able to write a letter, one I never intended to send, to my abuser to tell him how I felt. It was amazingly therapeutic to put my pain and hurt into words addressed to him. A couple of months after I wrote that letter, I decided to file a formal complaint with the church and to include my letter to Pastor Jones. Since the bishop was the most powerful person I could think of, I addressed the letter to him. Growing up at First Church, Mama says I have to go to church. Ask her why. Been going since I was a baby. I'm older now. Haven't I learned enough? She says I need to learn to be more like Jesus so I won't grow up like my papa. He's a drinker and he's crude, she says. I got no choice, so I go. Mostly geeks and freaks and me. Older kids form circles and sing and dance. The music draws them in. At the center I spy the source, the music man, the Pied Piper. He writes the songs they sing. I wish I could join in, but I'm too young and invisible. One day, when I'm old enough, he smiles that accepting smile at me and says, welcome. I tell Mama now I want to go to church. She says, good, the preacher man will teach you well. He takes me by the hand and he tells me I'm special. We talk of peace, love, acceptance. He listens to me. He makes my words into the music we sing. The Pied Piper is my friend. Mama says I'm on the right track. Now my life really means something. Things make sense. Mama's proud, I can tell. Then one day when I'm low, he rubs my shoulders. That's nice. Before I know what's happening, he touches places no one but me has touched. I don't understand. It doesn't seem right, but it feels good. As good as when I touch there at night alone in my room. My heart and mind say no, but I cannot find the words. Does that make me evil? Over time, it feels as though I'm tied in that chair, and my mind travels far while he touches my skin. I can't say no to him, and I sure can't tell Mama. Music, God, Jesus, love, dance, touch, erection, ejaculation. Do they really go together like that? I'm confused, Mama. What does it mean?